In the face of fear and uncertainty, in the face of sacrifice, in the face of isolation, in the face of loss and desperation, how can we move forward together when it feels like we couldn't be more apart? The T.D. Jakes Foundation and the Potter's House want you to know that no matter what happens, there are some things we can always count on. That your sacrifices are valued and help is on the way. You are not alone. And that bringing you the hope and the healing you need is our mission and our calling. We want you to know that in the face of change, we will face it together.
So I'm excited. I want to welcome everybody and a chance to eavesdrop on a conversation that I believe that is so profound and prolific. Two of the smartest people I know in the world are on this conversation with me, and you get to eavesdrop and learn some information about some opportunities, whether you're looking for a job, looking to upgrade a position, or whether you're in a management or entrepreneurial position and you're trying to get some clues about how to steer your organization and or church through the vicissitudes of the times that we're living in as it relates to COVID-19 and what I like to call the tremors of COVID-19, because it's not just about the pandemic that is sweeping the country. It is also the economic impact, the psychological impact, the emotional impact. It impacts literally every aspect of our lives. I am pleased to have I call her my sidekick and cohort, Hattie Hill, with me, who is the Chief Executive Officer for the T.D. Jakes Foundation. And so you're going to learn a lot from her. She's got a long, prestigious career and then has been a CEO and worked in leadership most of her life. And also, if you're interested in leading, or if you're interested in learning, or you're interested in garnering information about the foundation or about leadership in general, she's certainly a huge influence, having had a long experience as an entrepreneur herself. So we're going to have a wide range of conversation. Welcome, Hattie. I'm glad to have you.
Thank you, sir.
And our very special guest is Fred Perpall. I'm proud to call him my friend. I've added his name to my resume to get brownie points. Fred has been since 2013 leading Beck and Beck Enterprise in an amazing way. He also gives back to the community in a multiplicity of ways, and one of those ways is by serving on the Dallas Citizens Council. Fred, we're glad to have you. Thanks for being a part of this.
Thank you, Bishop. Good to be here.
I'm going to start off telling this story because I always tell this story when I talk about you. When I met you, you were the junior architect at Beck and actually was the designer that designed the Potter's House.
Yes, sir.
That was in, 24 years ago.
Yeah.
You
97, 98.
Yeah, 98, okay. And you made a huge climb from there to being the CEO over Beck. Can you talk just a little bit about that journey?
Yeah. You know, one of the things that I'm most proud of, and I think sometimes we have to think about when we come from these different backgrounds, you know, a lot of times we think about what we don't have. So we think about, you know, I'm different from everyone else, and, you know, maybe I'm a person of color, I'm a black guy, no one else here is black. And at the time I joined Beck, I was literally the only African-American professional in our architecture group. But I always thought about the attributes that I did have, and, you know, the things that made me unique in terms of, you know, the experience, the connection to communities, and the connection to other people. I say to people, there are three things in terms of advancing your career. The first is you have to be a person of integrity. And integrity is something that you just cannot substitute. You have to have a very clear moral compass, and you have to do what you say you will do. You have to be very honest. Secondly, you have to work hard. I mean, there is no excuse for hard work. And I think hard work is the one thing that you could control. You might not control how intelligent you are naturally. You may not be a gifted speaker like the bishop. You may not be, you know, beautiful like Hattie, but you can control your effort. And I think, for people, hard work is the thing that you just cannot substitute. And then I think the final thing is you have to be in the service of others. And if you're in business, to be great in business is to be useful. And to be useful is to be in the service of other people. And I think, Bishop, I'm so proud of our friendship. It's something that I've always admired. I always say to the Bishop, he's become a very active mentor to me, but I said, you were always a mentor from afar, because I think you are the embodiment of all those things. And for our audience today, folks looking to accelerate their career, those three things are the things that I try to focus on.
Well, you certainly get an amen from me. You call Hattie good looking and you call me smart. So we're definitely going to be in your amen corner today. Tell us a little bit, for those people who don't know the vastness of Beck and might not be as familiar with Beck. Would you talk about how many employees you have and what type of construction you oversee?
Yeah. So Beck is one of the largest design build companies in the country. We have offices and operations that span throughout the Sun Belt in the United States, as well as 2 offices in Mexico. We also do quite a bit of design work in Asia. We have just over 1,000 full-time employees, and then about 8,000, sort of subcontractor and hourly employees. So I like to say every week, about 10,000 people show up to Beck, to our job sites, to earn a living and to hopefully build a better life. And so for the last 7.5 years, I've been blessed to be the CEO. We're headquartered in Dallas, which I think is, has been an amazing place. And this is our 110th year, or we're going into our 110th year in business. And so my main objective is not to be the last CEO and not to be the CEO that takes us under. So, but in a real serious way, that's just a little bit about who Beck is. We're proud to work a lot in healthcare. We do a lot of work in higher ed. So we're building a lot of universities. We do a ton of work in the corporate commercial space, retail, offices, et cetera. And regardless of all of the wonderful buildings we've built, I love to tease the Bishop. My mother was most proud that we were the designer and builder of the Potter's House. And it is literally the way she always introduced me. This is my son. He was the architect and builder of Bishop Jakes' Potter's House.
That's amazing. You built hospitals, you built major bridges and airports and everything else, and she's still talking about the Potter House. Yeah. Give her my love. Hattie, can you talk from a woman's perspective? I know you worked previously before I got to snatch you in the women's food industry. Can you talk about women in leadership? I think that would be interesting to the audience.
Sure. So first of all, of course, thank you, Bishop, for this opportunity. And especially thank you for having the vision around the T.D. Jakes Foundation, because the world of STEM and STEAM is so exciting and needed right now. And who knew we would be in this place when you had this vision and brought it to life. So I'm just excited to be a part of it. Also, Fred, it's great to see you and thank you for your leadership. Fred has been a true pillar in the community, especially in the last few weeks around COVID, even before that when he came to town, but now it's so critical. So I'm just honored to be here with both of you. And also when I look at the leadership that's required, and women have always been at the helm of leadership, whether behind the scenes or beside or in front. But what is required right now from all of us, and I spent 32 years of my career working in leadership in corporate America. The last 7 years ran the Women's Leadership Forum for Women's Food Service, and it's all about developing women leaders. And in that role, we were the largest women's organization, and all of our clients was the major corporations. So we had to make sure their women were on track. Now, the interesting thing that we learned is that women didn't always progress like they should in their careers. And there were challenges on both sides. Oftentimes women did not step up. Other times the companies did not step up. And we partnered with McKinsey to really look at the research around that. And then what were some of the solutions that we could bring so that women could be successful. When you bring that forward to this day and time, right now we are in a critical emergency, as you said, in our workforce, in the careers. And so I really do believe this is an opportunity for women to step up. We need all hands on deck. I don't care who you are. What Fred said earlier about the disadvantaged, right now everything's happening online, and I can turn off my video and you wouldn't know what color I was. So it is now time for all hands on deck, and women who have often not stepped up or who are afraid of their ideas. We need every idea. I was excited to work with executive women around the world. And the result of that is you find that the best idea can come from any place. And that's what we need right now.
You know, one of the things that makes me so excited about this conversation, particularly in our community, we only see leadership through the pinnacle of stage and marches. And what are you doing if you're not on stage, you're not marching, or you're not handing out turkeys? What are you doing for the community? But in reality, let's talk a few minutes about the fact that the community actually evolves through meetings like this and boardrooms and executives making decisions behind the scenes, whether they're elected officials, whether they are CEOs like yourselves, or whether they're faith leaders or community leaders. It's not really the big showy microphone yelling at people that gets things done. It's really the reasoned, rational, strategic alliance of people working behind the scenes. And that's why I'm really excited about TD Jakes Foundation, because we have committed ourselves to work behind the scenes to really get things done rather than to just make noise. And our associations span from the faith world to the corporate world to the entertainment world, throughout the international realm as well. And we have committed ourselves through the foundation to make those connections in such a way that we can get the messages that are needed to the people that need them, or the job opportunities, which is what we're getting ready to talk about in a minute, that are needed to people that need them. You can find out things that you don't find out otherwise. A lot of times, by the time the information trickles down to our community, the money is gone, the job is gone, all the cars have left the car lot, and the parking lot is empty. Mm-hmm. We don't want that to happen. And so we have formed an alliance, many alliances, I probably should say, but one of them with the Dallas Citizens Council, so that we can work together to get things done. And we're going to be telling you some information in a moment for those of you that are having to retool yourselves as a result of COVID-19, having to reinvent yourself, because when we talk about going back to normal, I think that's actually a fallacy. In reality, this is going to be a new normal and a paradigm shift of which the country will be in some ways different than it's ever been before. It would be a tragedy for this many lives to be lost, and this much of an upheaval to be accomplished, and us not be changed. We should learn something from this that really changes the world. Before we get into the deep weeds of the jobs, I wanted to ask Fred. I was reading D Magazine, and there were some interesting things in an interview that was done with you, where you talked about how you communicated and the importance of communication with your staff, as vast as it is, during this whole COVID-19 process. Can you talk about best practices for surviving things that are out of control? I'm a control freak. I like things I can't control. And this came along, and it was very difficult for me because I couldn't control it, couldn't make a decision, I couldn't fix it, I couldn't resolve it. It was out of my wheelhouse and everybody else's wheelhouse that I knew. And I think we're still trying to figure out how to resolve that. But you talked about the importance of getting stability on your team, on your organization. I think whether you're a pastor or whether you're a leader, a manager, or just trying to hold your family together, some of the tips you gave would be quite helpful.
Yeah, Bishop, thank you for teeing that up. And it's, again, it's some of the things that you do so well. But one of the things that became really clear to me was that no one on our team had a clear playbook for what we were about to go through. And I think leadership is ultimately about people. you manage stuff, but you lead people. And our team here at BEC, but also our Citizens Council team, they just want to know what you're thinking. And I think leaders have to be fine, particularly those of us who are probably more type A, which is what propelled us to want to lead and to these roles. We have to be willing to be more vulnerable when we don't have all of the answers. To say, I'm not sure what we're about to face, and some of this is out of my control, but the things that are in my control are how much do I care, right? Caring is still within my control. How honest will I be? This is a time to look people in their eyes and to be transparent based on what you know, and to be honest, even if it's not what they want to hear. This is a time for more communication. I said to our team, it is impossible to over-communicate in a crisis because people are afraid, and the fear of what you don't know is usually greater than the fear of what you could know. So let's tell them everything we know. Let's admit that the situation is fluid. And so, we have tried to be really connected. And Hattie mentioned this earlier, and I really agree with it. Connection doesn't have to be physical, and engagement can certainly be, very different from presence. So we may not be present with each other, but we can be more engaged with each other. And in my life, just talking personally, things have slowed down a bit. There's not the airplanes and the airports and the hotels and the constant influx of requests to be different places. And so one good habit that I've asked all my leaders to do is pick up the phone every day and call 10 people. 10 people in our ecosystem. It could be employees, it could be other teammates, it could be partners, it could be clients. But this is a time to connect to people. This is a time to make sure people know that we're going to be here, and we're going to support, and we're going to do everything in our power to exhibit the kind of caring that we talk about. And so I don't know exactly where this journey is taking us, but I do know if we lean in together, and if we care for each other, and if we're each willing to take a little less, that we will help the majority of us get through this. And so that's kind of, the kind of approach we've tried to take.
It's funny you should say that, because my first instinct was to start communicating more and more. I started doing Facebook Lives. I started communicating on Instagram once I figured out how to do conversations on Instagram, which took a minute for a boomer. I really knew that it was important for there to be a calming voice and a leadership voice and a voice that helped people emotionally, spiritually, and even directed them toward resources that would help them through the storm. As a leader and as the chairman of the foundation, I was looking for ways in which we could use our platform in this critical time to move the ball along and to make sure that things like the CARES Act was made known to the people that needed to know it. The PPP opportunity, the payroll protection plan, was made known to the people that most needed to know it. My fear was some of the people that met the criteria wouldn't need it as desperately as some of the people down in the brush and the bushes of our communities who really needed that. And it was the difference between day and night. As a leader of the church with 300 employees, which sounds really small after you gave your big number, by the way. Thank you for making me feel real like a midget. But 300 people for a faith leader is a huge organization. It's very unlikely that most churches have that many people on staff, but we do, and many of them are very, very professional people. My big fear, after a while, they become family. I thought, oh my God, I hate the idea of having to lay them off. And I was fighting to keep our revenue streams up and keep us in a position that I didn't have to let people go and disrupt their families. I'm sure every leader in America felt that way, but unfortunately, many people were not able to do that. Well, I want to turn our conversation to the millions of people in America right now who have filed for unemployment. The numbers are going up every day, who are in crisis, who really don't want to be sitting at home watching TV. They want to be in the workforce. They want to be back in the game. They don't know about the jobs that are available right now. They know about the jobs that are being lost. They're getting all the coverage. But the jobs that are available are getting no coverage in the media at all. As the Dallas Citizens Council, can you talk a little bit? I know that you've had a long career with the Dallas Regional Chamber of Commerce as well, about the jobs that are available in Dallas.
Yeah, so one of the immediate things that we wanted to do as a very broad business community was to think about ways to help the workers that would be displaced. Let me just tell you, in my own life, I remember viscerally at 13 years old when my father lost his job, and the kind of vulnerability that we felt as a family, you know, still lingers in my mind today. Will we be okay? You know, will we come through this? Can we keep our home? Can we keep the life that we had become accustomed to? So I know firsthand what it feels like to have a, you know, primary breadwinner, you know, displaced from their job. And I think the very first day that we convened as a business leadership group in Dallas, we thought about the things that were most actionable to help those who are most vulnerable and who would be displaced. And so we partnered across our community, and we're partnering with your foundation to actually create an exchange so that the companies that still need workers, whether it's, you know, McKesson, which is a huge distributor of pharmaceutical goods, or Domino's Pizza, which may need more delivery drivers because more people are home and need that kind of service, that across the spectrum of all of the things available, that we could give people a direct line to those companies to find immediate opportunities if they need them. Because we know that life and livelihood go hand in hand, and that people need that opportunity. The second thing I would say, Bishop, and I think I need to mention this, that tough times do not last unless we quit. And so we should not get into the instinct to feel sorry for ourselves if we've been displaced. People need to reimagine and to imagine what this will look like coming out of this. So in addition to finding immediate employment, I would just challenge all of our listeners today to think about the dreams you have for your future and how might you use some of this downtime to pursue the kind of skills building, the kind of, you know, tactic building, the kind of, you know, future that you might be pursuing. In my own life, I will tell you that I have more time, and I've been studying, I've been reading, I've used this as a time for a health reset. If I don't exercise now, I'll never exercise. So I think even within this gap, while we have to worry about the immediate, and we want to encourage people to hit the website, and I know Hattie will give us the link on the foundation website, to look at the opportunities out there. Coming through this, our cities will need more from us, not less. There will be more opportunities, not less. And I would just encourage people to think about and to imagine the future they really want, and to know that there will be so many opportunities coming through this. Do not, you know, miss the opportunity to continue to work on yourself as we work through this issue.
You know, thank you for that. I think that's very powerful and important for people to know. And it's also important that you rethink how you see yourself, because a lot of times we only evaluate ourselves based on the jobs we have done rather than the skills that we have. Finding those core skills and converting them into new opportunities may take you out of the arena of what you did in the past. And so understanding that it is your core skills go with you. Your job may not go with you, but your core skills go with you. A lot of people don't understand their core skills. So they look at their resume and they say, this is what I've done, so this is what I have to do. When in reality, leadership is leadership. Whether you're running back, whether you're running women's restaurants, whether you're running hotels, leadership, core leadership principles of leadership. That's true about cleaning services or building or anything else. There are some core things, and I think a lot of times these paradigm shifts make us have to get down to the core of what do we bring to the table and how can we convert what we bring to the table and make it fit new opportunities that maybe be outside of our purview previously. We have to reinvent ourselves. And all of us sitting here are here today because we had the ability to reinvent ourselves. You're not designing buildings anymore, and you're not sitting in front of draft boards anymore. Hattie's not doing what she's done for years and years and years. In fact, when I asked Hattie to be CEO of the foundation, I had to use spiritual power. Yeah, and I want Hattie to talk about this union that we made together.
Right.
But I want to preface it just by saying this. It occurred to me when Jesus was preaching and 5,000 people came to hear him preach, and the disciples brought a crisis to him. The crisis was the people were about to faint for the lack of food. And then Jesus went from just preaching to feeding. So he is leading and feeding. And I think it's important when you understand why I am in the position that I am. Jesus understood that giving them more sermons wasn't going to take away their hunger. And so I thought, as the chairman of the foundation, while preaching is wonderful and it is powerful, it does not feed your belly. It does not clothe you. It does not put a roof on your head. And so there has to be a practical application to faith that on one hand you hear preaching, on the other hand, let me see what I can do with this 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread. And the foundation from a chairman's perspective was designed for the feeding part of who we are, not the preaching part of who we are. I do that on Sunday morning, but feeding through the Texas Offenders Reentry Initiative, feeding through community development, feeding through our alliances and associations with people, feeding by providing opportunities to bring up your life so that you can prosper and be in good health as your soul does prosper. Your soul prospers. You have a great time in church. If we did life as well as we did church, we would be just fine. We do church better than any people in the world, but we don't always do life with the same power and intensity. So we get the preaching part good, but the 2 fish and the 5 loaves of bread is where we end up with lack and hunger. Hattie, can you describe it more eloquently? I know you can. Then I have to rely on my biblical skills to explain how the foundation started.
No, I think it was absolutely a great vision for you, setting it up as a separate 501c3 outside the church, because many companies can't partner with the church. With our focus on STEM or STEAM, which is critical because that's where the new jobs and the technology is. And so when you mentioned when you brought it to me, I was retiring from my running this nonprofit and was all excited about doing little or nothing. And you're like, no, this is what we need to do. And what was so exciting about it, one, is just the breadth and width and spread of all of your platform. And the TD Jakes platform is huge. People don't tend to know that because they often put you in a box. But when you look across entertainment, real estate, all the other businesses that you have, Bishop, outside, and how do we take that platform and really help people? And that's what this was all about. I've also been in a position to be a part of the Dallas leadership for 30 years and serving on the chamber board, the different boards, and just understanding the critical importance of collaboration. And so when you were explaining the vision to me for the foundation of collaboration, convene, and then leveraging your platform to elevate whatever that issue or concern for our various communities would be at the time, it just seemed to make sense. And for me personally, it combined my purpose, my passion, and absolutely execution, because I love to make things and watch them work. I'm a true entrepreneur to my heart for 32 years. And I will say, as Fred said, my mother said when I told her what I was going to do, she said, now you finally have a real job. So I'm finally important now that I'm running your foundation. But I do think that we have this amazing opportunity in our community right now, especially in the Dallas community and really around the country, because your brand is not only a local, national, but a global brand. And so it was us sitting down, as Fred mentioned earlier, with the leadership and that we have good relationship to convene. Fred is the chair of the Dallas Citizens Council, but also sitting as his partner in that effort, similar that you and I are, is Kelvin Walker, who is the CEO. Dale Petrosky at the Chamber, who you know personally, have a great relationship. He's sitting in that role, and sitting with him, who is the chair, is John Olajide, who is partnered with us on our Summer STEAM Academy. Wonderful leaders, excited to participate. And for Dallas, that's how we come together and address our problems. And we are excited that we could be a part of that collaboration. And then coming together for the big effort we're getting ready for launch for the summer, we had a lot of feedback. Immediately, there was two needs, and I'll share it this way. There were two things. It's what is the immediate, as Fred said. One, people needed jobs. So as opposed to us trying to reinvent something, we got together with Dale's team and talked to John as the chair and said, how can we help? And he said, use Bishop's platform to get these jobs out there. So for anyone who's looking for a job, if you go to tdjakesfoundation.org, there is a huge banner that says Jobs for Displaced Workers. If you click on that, you will see all the various companies that have jobs. If you go inside, or even if you don't see your company, and you put the name into the search engine, it will list if that company has job openings. Now, the result of that is the job description is there, the contact information for the company. You don't have to come through us. You go in, you look, you find something you're interested in, and you take off. And I will tell you, there are some good jobs in there. I was talking to someone who needed a job immediately, had gotten laid off from one of the hotels. I sent them into the website. They found a job in the healthcare industry, and basically they're delivering medication to the various people who need it, who can't get out to get their own medication. And I was just blown away because the job pays $700 a week. I'm like, I may have to deliver some medicine. So you just really have to be diligent right now. And what I would say to all of our listeners in the community is that don't lose hope. Similar, Fred, to what you said, don't lose hope. Look for opportunities. Reach out. There are serious opportunities out there. Initially, there was over 4,000 jobs that went into that original post. We're adding every day as we get needs from organizations. So that piece is critical. Then the second piece, of course, that had to do with our small business community. And one of the reasons I love the work of the foundation, because Bishop, your heart is, okay, what's needed next? And as you are an entrepreneur, so you go, okay, what do they need next? Let's get it out there. So the next piece was pulling down all of the resources around small business, the banking information. And one of the reasons our collaboration with the Citizens Council and the Chamber has been so powerful, because every week there is a joint call between these two organizations, and we all get on the phone and listen to, and Fred can speak to this, you've got CEOs from all the major banks, everyone's on the phone, and they're saying, here's what's happening, here's what we need, how do we all work together to get this done? So we're listening to those calls and then responding immediately on our website. So all of the contact information for those various organizations and things that are coming out on a weekly basis is there. I was going through the job unemployment report. It's supposed to be over 21 million this week. It'll come out, I think it'll come out tomorrow or Monday, we'll get the final results. So there's a lot of people who are going to need help. The lines, of course, are not able to even handle all of that. But our goal is for people not to lose hope for the displaced workers. And you have taught us all so well about that. And we want the foundation to be there for people for that piece. The second area is the students. And we've been in lots of conversation about what to do about our young people who are home trying to get their education. And so we have taken the STEAM Academy that we used to do at the church, of course. It has now come under the foundation. It will be an online virtual learning experience that will start mid-June. It'll be a 5-week program. And we are working with, again, our elected officials. Casey Thomas specifically asked that we really put a holistic approach to this, so that as young people register, we're looking for partners so that families don't have to pay. We're making sure that we reach out to the home, because you have a lot of parents who aren't prepared for this digital process that they've been thrown in through technology. So we're looking at putting a digital literacy program in there for parents, just to give them a snippet of what that's going to look like. So our immediate need in our community, one is for our workers, which is the adults, and then the second piece is for our students. And we're looking to launch that program mid-June. We're putting all of our pieces in place, partnering with people like John Olajide at Access. Microsoft has come on. I'm sure Fred's coming on. And just making sure that we're able to provide the resources for the programming without the families having to pay, because this is the year where we know, with so many people laid off, they will not be able to do that. But again, we learned of those needs through our alliance in collaboration with leadership like Fred and John Olajide to these two organizations. We're also bringing the United Way in as a part of this as well. And the goal is to meet the immediate need, and especially the immediate need for our communities. And the last thing I'll say on this, Bishop, is that you, as the chairman of this organization, is a trusted voice, but you're also a huge trusted voice in the faith-based community. And it's going to require all of us, elected officials, business leaders, other community nonprofits, to address what's happening with COVID-19 will require all of us working together.
You know, when we think about this, this is going to sound like a deviation, but it's really not. One of my favorite Broadway plays is Hamilton. And one of my favorite songs in the Broadway play Hamilton, if you haven't seen it, you need to go see it anywhere in the world. It's amazing. Is In the Room Where It Happens. Yeah, In the Room Where It Happens. And when I served on the executive board for the Dallas Regional Chamber of Commerce and made those early 6 a.m. meetings, I was amazed I'm used to hearing the needs of the people, but to get to sit in a room filled with CEOs all over the Metroplex and listen at the needs of the CEOs, where they desperately need people, workforce, opportunities, smart people, upwardly mobile thinking people, or sometimes just delivery people, where they need them on the boards, they need them in executive positions, they need them in mid-management positions. And I sat there and I thought to myself, oh my God, I got people in my choir that could fill that job. I got somebody that's an usher at my church who has the skill set to do that job. And I thought there's a disconnect going on here between the people, the executives who have needs, and the people who have needs. And that's really what started me on this journey to the foundation, was understanding that we could kind of perform the marriage ceremony that connected the people whose needs are mutual and they normally wouldn't know each other. I thought, Fred, this might be a good place for you to jump in and talk about the needs of the various corporations that are based here in Dallas, and how important it is that we get that knowledge and that information onto the streets of America to the people who need job opportunities.
Bishop, that is so good, and thank you for mentioning that. I think one of the things that I'm really excited about partnering with you and Hattie, a foundation like this is so essential to serve as that connector tissue between people. You know, I always joke, one of the things I think we need to really stay focused on this notion of inclusion and inclusive growth is we can't be the city we want to be, nor the country we want to be, leaving big swatches of our young people behind and excluding large groups of our talent behind. I always joked about, if you're a brother in America, there's one time you're going to be with other Black people, and that's at the barbershop.
Right.
And, so the disconnect from going from these boardroom tables where we're expressing the need of not being able to find sufficient talent, having all of this unfilled, positions, not being able to recruit enough people to move into our city. And then on Saturday mornings, going to the barbershop where we had all of these talented people who were underemployed or unemployed. And the disconnect that happens in every American city between this demand and this supply, I think can only be filled at the level and the place where people at. We have to meet people where they exist. And that's why the T.D. Jakes Foundation to me is so important. And it's important for organizations like the Chamber and the Citizens Council. You know, we represent 120 of the largest companies in Dallas with over 1 million employees, and we need even more employees. And so the real issue is, are you building the skills in your community that would serve for the future talent that we need? And that's why the STEAM programs, the programming, so coding, all of these things that our young people need to be exposed to early in their life. You know, Einstein said it, and I believe it, that imagination is more important than knowledge, that you have to be able to imagine what you want to become so that you can get on the journey to becoming it. And we have spent a lot of time at the Citizens Council on this workforce development issue. We call it talent because it is not only the moral thing to do, it's not only, altruistic to do it, it's also good for business to do it. Mm-hmm. And so I think the organizations that we serve, and it's companies that you would all know. I mean, these are household brands, are highly interested in this connected leadership, understanding that we play a role, but we have to invest in those other organizations that are doing some of the work we wish we can do ourselves, mm-hmm. but based on their proximity to the need and to the people, are better positioned to do the work. And so I'm so excited about, this kind of partnership, going forward.
I'm really excited about it too. I want to say this too, that I think it's important to understand. When we talk about STEM and STEAM programs, we understand that science and technology, energy, arts, and math is the way the world is going. And I think they're going to be going there more rapidly after COVID-19, because the one thing COVID-19 taught all of us, whether you're a pastor or whether you run a Pizza Hut, if you don't get into technology, you're not going to be able to communicate with people in the old ways that our fathers did. This is not our father's world anymore, and times have really, really changed. But on the other hand, to the person who's intimidated by all of that, they say, I don't want to go back to school and I don't want to learn how to code, or maybe I'm in the middle of my life and I can't code. I think they also have to remember that Xerox still needs a plumber. They still need a truck driver. They still need somebody to clean the windows. They still need somebody to deliver mail. They still need things. So don't be intimidated to go to the website and find something that fits your skill sets. But what we are also saying is, if you want to point yourself toward the future, you can work on one hand and train on the other, and you can recreate yourself. And once you get in the door in a great company on any level, you can move up the ladder like you did. I mean, you didn't come in as a plumber, but you certainly are not a junior architect anymore.
No, I came in as an intern. And, as a 22-year-old intern, I joined Beck, which at the time, had 100 years in business and a global brand. But let me just also say, one of the things about this reimagining yourself and not giving up on yourself is this notion that so much of the skills for the future will be built in the workplace. At Beck, which is our, sort of home in our day-to-day, we started a Beck School of Construction, because we know that the limit that we have as a company is not the opportunities. There are far more opportunities than we have people for. Mm-hmm. Our limit really is the talent. And so, in downtown Fort Worth and in South Dallas, we started our own school of construction to expose our young people coming out of high school to opportunities in this field. Not every job requires a 4-year degree. Many of these jobs can be learned in place. We have crane operators that make $150,000 a year. We have heavy machine drivers that make 6 figures. And it's just, to me, it's a disservice to our community to not have more exposure. And I will tell you, I have 2 nephews that are brilliant. I love them. They have my last name. They went to 4-year college. they were not four-year college students. They're now going through the Beck School of Construction, learning how to do, and they're coming in right at the ground floor, learning how to build buildings so that they can build a wonderful life. And that's really, to me, what all of our companies in the Citizens Council are trying to do, whether you're in construction or telecommunications or an airline. All of these companies want access to talent. They know that they need diversity in that talent, but we also know that we bring so much attributes to the table, just given our God-given, sort of gifts. And I think we just have to be fearless in terms of taking that first step. The hardest step, Bishop, is taking that first step for that person to apply, to show up, and then to trust that they're going to be nurtured and they're going to be developed. And I think what you're doing actually serves one of the greatest purposes, which is connecting people to the opportunity, but also giving them the confidence that they need to take that first step.
I'm glad you teed me up as if you knew where I was going next. That's so cool. By the way, Fred and I could get together and shut down any restaurant anywhere, talking to all the waiters. Yeah, we've done it. All the waiters hated us and wanted us to please shut up and go home. But you really teed up where I was going next. And with the few minutes we have left, I just want to talk about the mental fortitude that is necessary to recreate yourself. And during this downtime, I think everybody, once they got over the shock of being shut up in the house, had to begin to think, where am I going from here? And people who don't make that transition from, oh my God, I can't stand being stuck in the house, this is driving me crazy. We all start out there, but then we start using this downtime as an opportunity to think about what the second half of your life ought to look like. What are you doing with your life? Where do you want to go from here? People who don't move their mind from the past on into the future find it very difficult to see any evolution in their life. And you have to have mental dexterity and fortitude to be able to do it. I'm having the opportunity to talk to two people who have lived the most stressful lives imaginable in all the world, who are in command and under command and still have huge responsibilities to achieve goals, to accomplish things, to get things done. And to take both of you and shut you up in a house, in a cave somewhere where you can't get out is like torture in World War I. And yet you survived it. How do you keep your head together? How do you keep your mind moving forward? How do you use unproductive situations to be productive? Anything along the mental, emotional health that's necessary to evolve to the next level as we get ready to close from the both of you would be fantastic.
Sure, I'll go first. I think it's first and foremost, it is really creating a new routine for yourself based on the situation that you're in. So whatever you have had in your life, you get up, you go work out, you get yourself organized. With Zoom calls, we actually have to look great. And so you have to get yourself together. And then it's blocking out time for those critical pieces of your life. One, here's what I need for myself. I need my alone time, my prayer time, my reading time, and then for the people that are closest to me. Now, the struggle is for people who have lots of other people in the home. I've got to be the teacher. I have to be the lunch maker now. I have to be all of those. But even in the midst of that, maybe it requires you to get up a little earlier. You don't have commute time. Your commute is probably a little shorter. So you can block that out. And then secondly, I think this is a huge time to connect with family. We started a family Zoom call that we do every Sunday just to say, is everyone okay? And we have been consistent with that in the last 3 Sundays. And it's such a great feeling. Easter Sunday, we cooked like we normally do, but my family that's here in town, we did drive-by deliveries. You know, here's your dressing, come get it, don't touch me, keep mask and go. And so it's given you some sense of security in that this is going to be a normal for a minute. And then third, the goals that you have for your purpose, which is whatever you're doing right now for your business, is to really focus. What are one or two things I really want to get accomplished? And then talk about your future. Because if I'm doing something right now that may not exist, or I talked to a couple people yesterday who had been furloughed, and we brainstormed 3 or 4 things that they could do immediately to keep their brain going, to keep their mind going, and to keep themselves going. So I think those have been the key for me. And then the biggest piece that I've been challenged, I'll tell you personally, it's been shut it down. You have to pick a time. I can work till from 4 in the morning till 7, 8 at night. I'm not a night person. Bishop already knows that. Late night. But I have to put a clock on. You have to stop. It is, 6 o'clock, go have dinner and get yourself into your family routine for the rest of the evening. So those have been really helpful for me in this time.
For me, I would just like to add to that how important it is that you have a vision for the future and not so much wallowing in the past, that you have that vision. And I think what helps to facilitate that vision is being around upward thinking people, positive people, progressive people, because if you associate with the wrong types of people, their mindset is contagious and more infectious than COVID-19. And after a while, you find yourself afflicted with the way they think. You might have the skills to get out, the talent to get out, the gifts to get out, or the education to get out. But if you don't have the mindset to get out, you can have more degrees than a thermometer. But if you don't have that inner fortitude and fight back to pick yourself up, you can't do it. So getting yourself into a position where you're thinking up and feeling up and associating with people who are going up is an important part of it. Fred, what is it for you? I can't imagine what that's like for you.
Yeah, well, Bishop, you're right on it. And I echo everything that Hattie said, so I won't repeat, but a lot of what she's mentioned is exactly what I'm doing. I think the one thing I wanted to kind of touch on that you sort of really, that resonated with me, was this notion of how do you go through the process of reimagining and thinking about your future. So often, we think about, our relationships to other people and serving other people, but in order to love other people adequately, you got to love yourself properly. And I think the one thing that I've figured out in my routine, I've got a 14 and 15-year-old, 2 daughters that I love. I've got a lovely wife who's been my partner since 19. So when they get up and going in the house and we're all sort of trying to coexist with each other in a extended time that we have not had to do, the house changes. So for me, it's about establishing really practical routines that you can execute and control on. I'm an early riser by nature, as you know from my texts to you. But I think it starts off with having a very disciplined routine that allows you to take care of the people around you, but also take care of yourself. And I like to say in the morning, the first thing I do is put good things in. So we think about, eating the right stuff, but what are we putting into our mind, and what are we putting into our soul? Bishop, one of my habits, and I will tell you this, one of my habits is to watch a motivational sermon or some spiritual, recommendation from you every morning. And I've shared this with my management team. I've shared it with my YPO buddies. I've shared it with everyone. And you've got a lot of people that you're putting good stuff into every morning in this business community that really matters. I try to get my exercise in, because after putting something in good and a little meditation, then I try to feed my physical self, so that in order to have congruency with my mental self. And then I think having quiet time to journal. Bishop, I literally every day open a journal and write down ideas for my future, that by writing them down and verbalizing them, they become so real that when we achieve them, it's almost like you're expecting it. I remember once my mother saying to me, like, she was so proud of all the things I accomplished. And at the very end, she said, but I'm not surprised. And I would love for people to be that confident with the journey that they're on and the imagination for their future that they have, that when they achieve these audacious goals that they set, because they reflect on them
Yes.
so viscerally because they write them down and they dream and imagine them, that in their minds they become real. So that when you achieve your goals, you might say to yourself, I'm happy, but I'm not surprised.
Wow, that's
Awesome.
fabulous.
Awesome.
That sounds like a good sermon right there.
And we're going to leave that to you.
So listen, if you've been watching us and you've been listening to what we had to say, we thank you, first of all, for giving us this much of your time and attention. And I want to thank both of you for giving us so much of your time and attention, because all three of us are committed to trying to make a difference and trying to use our platforms and influence. We have not forgotten you. We are mindful of you. We are talking about you. We're working on you. We're concerned about you. And we're trying to leverage our perspective influences to make the world a better place, not just to make it better for us, but to make it better for you. What you need to do is ingest all of this information, the information that we've shared, not just about the website, though I'm going to put the website on the screen again. I want you to see that. I want you to go to the website. I want you to explore it. I want you to reimagine yourself. But there's also been content that's been given over the course of the conversation that is going to be very helpful to you. I want to thank you, Fred, and I want to thank you, Hattie, for being so generous with your time. These are people I can't afford, y'all. Let me tell you something. You have to use love to get people you can't afford. So first I get them to love me, and then I get them to work for me, because if I had to write them checks, I would go broke. So thank you. I just really want you both to know that I realize who you are and what you bring to the table. And I am so honored that you would spend so much time trying to help people and trying to help the T.D. Jakes Foundation to fulfill its dreams and its goals and its purpose in the earth. Thank you so much.
In the face of fear and uncertainty, in the face of sacrifice, in the face of isolation, in the face of loss and desperation, how can we move forward together when it feels like we couldn't be more apart? The T.D. Jakes Foundation and the Potter's House want you to know that no matter what happens, there are some things we can always count on. That your sacrifices are valued and help is on the way. You are not alone. And that bringing you the hope and the healing you need is our mission and our calling. We want you to know that in the face of change, we will face it together.